Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Northside Nine. We are four-star Chicago sports. As always, well, I should say welcome back. Kyle had a family event last week, but he's back with us this week, and we are going to break down some Cubs action, some things that happened through the week. Kyle, I know you've had a busy week, so maybe I have to fill you in on what an awful week our starting pitchers had this week because it was brutal. They got beat up in Cactus League play. But that's okay. It is spring training, but we're going to take a look at some of these numbers on this brutal week for the Chicago Cubs. Tyson Miller continues to get beat up in relief. The Cubs do remain undefeated. Let's start off on Monday. The acquisition of Michael Boyd. He pitched 2 innings, had 2 hits, 2 walks, 2 Ks. So that looks like it started off well in that game against the Padres. Ben Brown followed that up on Monday with 2 innings, giving up 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, and a home run and only 1 strikeout. On Tuesday, Jamison Taillon got the start. He went 2 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, 1 home run, 2 strikeouts. And then on Wednesday, we jumped into Shota Imanaga. He pitched 2.2 innings as well. He had 6 strikeouts, which is the good thing that came out of the outing. He allowed 1 walk, gave up 3 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned, and a home run versus the Giants. On Thursday, Mr. Jordan Wicks got the call, and he was, for let's say, again, his second start, about the same as his first start. He went about 2 2/3 of an inning, gave up 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, a home run, and no walks. And Friday, our boy, the man of steel, Justin Steele, 2 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, 2 Ks, and a home run given up. So the Chicago Cubs starters this week have been giving up the long ball. And as we always know, it is spring training. They're working on things. They're going through stuff. Just notable that just about every starter for the week gave up a dinger. I think that's a little bit of a concern. Strikeouts were down. Walks were about even. Hits were up. So, again, it's spring training. Cubs are still undefeated. They ended up with a couple of ties in spring training play this week. Angel, welcome to the show. The producer, Bruce, is in the house, and at Mass, thanks for joining us. Appreciate y'all jumping in on this early Saturday morning. Jesus. Kyle, how you doing, man? I know you had a long night.
Doing good, man. I'm just tired. I usually got to work on Saturday around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So
we're gonna try and work our way. I know Kyle wants to pick apart this Cubs spending and how this organization just doesn't match up to what our expectations are as fans. But before we get into that, we're going to bust out this player profile of the week, and that's none other than number 9, Miguel Amaya. And the nugget on Miguel Amaya, he said it's always been his favorite number because it's his birthday. Of course, Miguel Amaya comes through the Chicago Cubs farm system. He was born on March 9th of 1999. He's born in Panama, signed with the Cubs as an international free agent in 2015. Overall, Amaya is known for his potential to hit for both average and power. While he doesn't have elite power at this point, he has shown the ability to drive the ball and have some pop in his bat. His approach to the plate has generally been solid with a good eye and ability to work counts. He's not necessarily a high contact hitter as of yet, but we did kind of see that change in the second half, and we're going to get of the season last year, and I'm going to get into that in just 1 second. As a defensive player, this is where Amaya really stands out. He's a very strong catcher. He has a plus arm. He has excellent blocking ability and strong framing skills. His ability for his in-game calling and to manage pitchers has been highlighted as a strength through his development through the Chicago Cubs farm system. The one thing that Amaya has dealt with in his career have been injuries. They've slowed him, particularly to his throwing arm. He missed much of the 2021 season after undergoing Tommy John surgery, which kept him out through some of the 2022 season, where he came back and showed encouraging signs of growth and development on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. In 2024, we saw some significant ups and downs from Miguel Amaya, but what we liked to see was that second half. So let's get into that. Miguel Amaya made some significant adjustments to his batting style. And this was due not only to his struggles at the plate that were picked up yet again by a master behind the plate in Dustin Kelly, but he didn't only help PCA, he helped this guy. From July 7th to the end of the season, he posted a 282 batting average with a 331 on-base percentage and a slugging percentage of 486 with 6 home runs over those final over 54 games in which he played. His defense did struggle. He struggled a little bit throwing out runners. We really, really hope that that's something that he worked on this offseason, because it's something that has plagued him, in his first season with the Cubs, something that needs to turn into a strength, something that Carson Kelly, his backup, is very good at. In 2024, he did rank second in MLB in catching at blocking runs at 3 and blocks per average at 12. Hopefully he can improve his throwing. As I said, he'll be great defensively. He's a great framer, and pitchers have actually asked to work with him because of his ability to frame these pitches. So as I was stating, as we're looking at this picture here, Dustin Kelly played a significant role in Miguel Amaya's swing adjustments during the season. Initially, as you can see, he had that leg kick in his batting stance, but that approach led to timing and consistency issues against MLB pitchers. In July, he sat down with Dustin Kelly, who modified his mechanics by eliminating that leg kick in favor of a simpler toe tap method. As we just stated, under his guidance and diligent work in swing mechanics, these results were noticeable through those 54 games in 2024. Amaya again posted that 282 average, that 331 on base percentage, and six home runs with that 779 OPS. He did finish in the second half of the season, which this is a wonderful number that we are all looking forward to. That 113 WRC in the second half. And he also started lifting the ball. He lowered his ground ball rate in the second half from 30% down to 14%. He cut it in half. So that is also amazing. As we start this 2024 season, and we want to continue to see this acceleration of Miguel Amaya, and I'm going to post his numbers down here at the bottom. He has started the spring excelling at the plate. Over his 12 plate appearances, he's posted a 500 batting average with 1 home run, recording 2 RBIs, resulting in an impressive 1.455 OPS. Just this past Monday against the Padres, he contributed significantly, going 3 for 4 with that only home run of the spring. This performance underscores his strong showing this spring. Miguel Amaya seems to be a player on the rise. And Kyle, you know this, there was a lot of Cub fans last year that were beating down Miguel Amaya. And I was like, stay the course with this guy. Stay the course with this guy. I love this guy. I love this guy. Kyle, give me a couple thoughts. What are your impressions, and what do you think of the development and the change of Miguel Amaya while we have him under the spotlight?
I like Miguel Amaya. I mean, as Alex Pett stated on the show 2 weeks ago, it's not something that was a fluke. The Cubs talked about there was an obvious error in his swing. They made an adjustment, and after that, he was a lot better. The only thing I could say about that is that needs to be continued success. I mean, it was a very small sample size in the second half of the season there when he started to hit well. And as cool as it is that he's hitting 500 in spring training, Sean, we talked about this every single year. Spring training means absolutely nothing to the regular season. I mean, first of all, these pitchers, like you said, that are struggling, we talk about it every year. They struggle every year. Most of these guys are working on a new pitch in their arsenal, or they're tweaking things here and there. Sometimes it works out for them. Sometimes it doesn't. They're going to get beat up. This is all their first baseball in months, live action baseball in months. And I think it was as recent as 2 years ago, Sean, I think Cody Bellinger did not have a hit in spring training, if I remember correctly, and then ended up being the Cubs MVP that season. So I don't take too much out of that. I do like Amaya. I think he's really good framing pitches. I think he could get better behind the plate at throwing guys out at second. That did seem to improve last year as his offense got better. Yeah. But overall, he's an interesting prospect. I still call him a prospect, Sean. He's young. I agree. He still has a lot to prove. But if he could build off what he did at the end of the second half of last season, he's going to be a good player in baseball for sure. And the Cubs may have found their catcher, which begs the question, Sean. What do you do with Moises Ballesteros in your minor league program there?
I honestly, I mean, I think as you go along, and we're going to run out of contract time here with Seiya Suzuki, I think Ballesteros could become a quality DH in this league. That guy is a hitting machine. I love Ballesteros, man, so much. I don't know that the Cubs project him as a long-term catcher. I think they were working him in the minor leagues at first base as well. So it could be a thing where he comes up, he's maybe a full-time DH, splits some time backing up Michael Busch at first, maybe gets a couple spot starts with Miguel Amaya behind the plate. But I hope and I pray that Ballesteros isn't one of these guys that they decide to ship off like they just did with Alexander Canario, my friends, who, in case you guys didn't hear, was traded to the New York Mets for cash considerations. So we will see how his development works, because I think personally that was an extreme loss for the Cubs. But anyways, when it comes to Ballesteros, I mean, that's kind of my feeling on him. I don't know that the Cubs see him as a plus defender behind the plate, and I don't think that he's built that way. I guess time will tell on that, but I do see him as a DH. And if you watch his minor league film, even watch him this spring, he drives the ball all over the field. This guy is a stud at the plate. Love this guy. And I just bought a stack of his baseball cards on the Cubs, so I hope he doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and we were reading articles not too long ago that were saying that he had improved behind the plate significantly. Now, I'm not saying that the Cubs' long-term plan is to put him at catcher, but yeah, they're going to have to figure that situation out. And to your point about Alex Canario, Sean, I mean, just another guy on the Cubs who was athletic, feels like he could have been like one of those utility players who play any position. And here we are now, a week later, and the Cubs are talking about the fact that Matt Shaw and Nico Hoerner are both probably going to miss that series in Japan against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, yeah, you guys, you better start figuring out a backup plan pretty quickly here.
Yeah, and that's a good segue, because that was going to be the next thing I brought up. So thank you, Kyle. Yes, as all reports indicate at the moment that Nico Hoerner and our boy Matthew Shaw will not be playing or traveling to Japan, even with the team. And obviously, Hoerner is recovering from the tendon flexor surgery that he had in the offseason. Matthew Shaw, look, for me with Shawzy, I'd really love to see him make a debut against $1 billion Dodgers in Japan. But at that same time, it's more important for me to see that guy at third base starting 120 games. So if he's not healthy, that's fine. Leave him back and just kind of roll with it. From what I'm hearing is they're warming up Justin Turner, and I apologize because right here on the Northside 9 last week I said I don't envision Justin Turner playing third base. And
Alex Pat agreed with you.
Yeah, and well, as we say that, they're stretching out his arm right now so he can play third base. And I'm going to be honest, the interview I heard from him during this week, I mean, his body language, he didn't seem overly excited about it. In that interview, he said, I haven't played third base in 2 years. So, I also think that Nicky Lopez is getting some play over there. And I think Gage Workman is going to be worked in either, I think, Nico Hoerner's spot. The Rule 5 draft pick from the Detroit Tigers, who's having somewhat of a decent spring. I'm just going to say this, guys. I'm not overly excited about the Cubs going to play the $1 billion Dodgers missing 2 holes in their lineup. That's for sure. So,
yeah, yes. The Cubs playing the Dodgers at full strength is going to be questionable. So the Cubs missing 2 players already is not a good start for them, especially since, as far as I could tell, the Dodgers have come in pretty healthy. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting series over there, Sean. I think this is probably more precautionary, especially due to the fact that it's the first regular season game of baseball. The Cubs are like, hey, we can afford to lose a couple early as long as these guys stay healthy. It makes sense, but it's definitely disheartening for Cubs fans, man. I mean, you want to go over to Japan. The whole world's going to be watching. You want to go over there and give them your best, and the Cubs are not going to be at their best. And so the Justin Turner thing, I like Justin Turner as a player. This is no disrespect to him, Sean, but a guy who's nearly 40 years old should not be playing third base. I mean, there's just too much length in that position. There's too much ground to cover. It's going to be interesting, man. But hopefully the Cubs find another backup plan for third base in the long run, and they get this all squared up. But yeah, it's not a good start for Matt Shaw's career, Sean. It's not.
Yeah. And I think he'll be okay. And I agree with you, Scott. Obliques are brutal in baseball. I don't think he'll be dealing with this all year, just because, we've watched Seiya Suzuki go through it the last couple of years. And, when he's taken that time off, he's been able to bounce back and not be bothered by it. The last 2 months of the season, last year when he returned, Suzuki was on an absolute tear. But, to your point, Scott, it could be true, if they don't let it heal up properly. So, again, I think even if he gets swept in 2 games by the Dodgers, it's more important that he's playing third base 120 games this year for the Cubs and getting his first major league season under his belt. But that's just me. That's just me, boys. So the main emphasis of this show was to kind of discuss the topic that was on the thumbnail. And this is going to be Tom Ricketts and what is going on in what is going on with his ownership of the Chicago Cubs and the way he's treating us as Chicago Cub fans. And let's go rewind it back a couple of weeks ago before this Bregman thing started going down. Tom Ricketts on the fans calling for the Cubs to spend money. They think somehow we have these dollars that the Dodgers and the Mets have, or the Yankees have, and we just keep it, which isn't true. What happens is we just try and break even every year, and that's about it. My translation of that is New York and LA will do anything to win a World Series. The Cubs, not so much. Now, as I say that, Tom Ricketts' comments highlight a tension between the financial expectations of Cub fans and the reality presented by ownership. While Ricketts argues that the Cubs aren't swimming in the kind of money that teams like the Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees are, his statement doesn't fully address the central frustration that fans feel. What do you think about this, Kyle? I know you have an interesting take and an interesting article to read to everybody, so let's cut into this deep.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, at the end of the day, the bottom line is Chicago sports owners have been very good at brainwashing fans into thinking that this is some poor city that can't afford money for their football team or baseball team or basketball team. However, you guys, that is just not the fact. As a matter of fact, when you hear Tom Ricketts say things like, the baseball side of this team is breaking even. We're not making any money. That's just a bold-faced lie. I mean, first of all, they're not. He doesn't include Marquee Network whenever he talks about the income from this team. Second of all, if there was a very good article, Sean, it came out a couple of weeks ago. It was by Jake Messner. I'm sorry if I butchered his name. He's on the Cubbies Crib, one of my favorite websites when it comes to the Cubs. But I mean, they talk about how much this team was purchased by the Ricketts family in 2009 for $845 million, Sean. This franchise is now worth $4.22 billion. And that's just the baseball team. I'm not talking about the real estate around Wrigley Field. So don't sit here, Ricketts, and tell us Cubs fans, that you can't afford more money for the baseball team. Here's just to take out a couple of really interesting quotes from this article, Sean. To begin the article, he says 14 teams spent more money than the Chicago Cubs in free agency this offseason. How many teams are more valuable than the Cubs? 3. The Yankees, Dodgers, and Boston Red Sox. Where do those teams rank in free agency spending? 3rd, 2nd, and 6th, respectively. If math isn't your strong suit, Chicago ranked 15th in free agency spending. Cubs owner Tom Ricketts has been taking shells all winter for national and local writers alike for his conservative approach to spending, despite owning one of the most valuable franchises in professional sports. Chicago sat on the sidelines at every major free agent outside of Roki Sasaki, who was only eligible to sign a minor league deal coming from Japan ahead of his age 25 season. Juan Soto, nope. Corbin Burns, good luck with that. Max Fried, not even a chance. Even in the team's recent pursuit of Alex Bregman, Jed Hoyer had to sell ownership to push past their budget for 2025, which means the club is looking at a payroll cut from last year, and the Cody Bellinger trade was solely about freeing up salary cap. I mean, yeah, Sean, this is getting ridiculous. Cubs fans deserve better. Cubs fans should be upset about this. The Chicago Cubs are the third most valuable team in baseball, fourth most valuable team in baseball. This team is one of the teams in baseball that should be involved in these big name free agency pieces every single year. The Cubs should have been a team making a run at Max Fried. The Cubs should have been a team making a run at Juan Soto. The Cubs should have been in the Ohtani sweepstakes, Sean. Yeah. They can afford it. Don't let them fool you guys and tell you they can't. This is a team that has the value of this team has gone up times 100 in the last 15 years since the Ricketts purchased this family. The fact that they come out here and tell us, we don't have any money for the baseball side of things. We only have money for the real estate side of things. So basically what Tom Ricketts is telling you guys is he doesn't have any money for you. but he has money for him and his family. That's what he's telling you. Because at the end of the day, guys, the real estate side of it, I know people like to say, oh, well, they're rebuilding Wrigleyfield so that all the fans can enjoy it. No, they're rebuilding Wrigleyfield because it's a business and it's making them more money. That's why they're rebuilding Wrigleyfield. It has nothing to do with Chicago Cubs fans or the Chicago Cubs in any way, shape, or form. This is a business for them.
Yeah, the disparity between Ricketts' comments and the Cubs their actual financial standing, Kyle, certainly raises a lot of eyebrows, because it's a topic that we've all been talking about. When the franchise is valued at $5.3 billion, with revenue raking fourth in MLB, it's hard for fans like us to accept the notion that the team is unable to keep up with top payrolls. The Cubs' financial muscle is undeniable. While running a team is more complicated than just having money, it's difficult to reconcile the idea of breaking even when the franchise is generating such significant revenue from Wrigley Field, from media deals, from the merchandise. The Cubs are a major market team, one of the highest franchise evaluations in MLB, and they have the financial capacity to spend on higher level players. But for some reason, there's reluctancy to do that. That just suggests more the break-even approach rather than one focused on a championship level competition. And to me, after the 2016 season, and all that excitement that was around Wrigley Field and everything that just happened and how we had 7 million people flood to this city, you figured this was something that he would embrace and want to keep going. And you look at this, and a lot of Cub fans, I think, were fooled. When you look at this, according to Bruce Levine, the Cubs offer to Bregman was $115 million with no deferrals. The Tigers had years and dollars, 6 years, $171.5 million with deferrals. And what did Bregman ultimately end up signing for? 3 years, $120 million with the Red Sox. Now, I'm going to say this. I don't mind that the Cubs missed out on Bregman at 3 years, $120 million. I think the Red Sox way overpaid, especially if you look at his numbers as how they've declined over the past couple of years. But to see that once again on a top free agent in the market, the Cubs underbid, it just sticks you right in your craw, because then you like you pointed out, Corbin Burns. Nope. Did they even try and make a competitive offer towards?
No, they weren't even involved in the conversations. I mean, Sean, how many times this has happened? And first, I'd like to say, what's up, Silver Steel? Thanks for joining us. That's my brother, Sean.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
But you guys, I mean, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. First of all, Sean, I'm not saying this is the fact that they're the fourth most valuable team in baseball means that they should just spend money aimlessly on players who don't deserve it. There's no reason that Alex Bregman should be making $40 million a year. I'm fine with the Cubs not signing that contract. The problem I have with the Chicago Cubs is, first of all, when Tom Ricketts started Marquee Network and decided, the Cubs need their own TV network, you guys are all going to have to pay $8, $9, $10 a month more for cable just because to include Marquee Network. He told us that was solely so they could put more money into the team.
Right.
They're putting less money in the team this year than they did last year. So that was just a bull-faced lie. And then, Sean, like I said, they were never even involved in the conversations for Max Fried, for some of these Tony Snell, some of these top pitchers. That is how you win championships. Listen, I'm not saying that the Cubs have to be the top spender every single offseason, but this disparity is too big. It's just too big, Sean. The Dodgers are going out there and going over the salary tax penalty by millions and millions of dollars. The Cubs are cutting spending every single year. It seems like every single time the Chicago Cubs want to bring a free agent here, they need to get rid of somebody on the roster in order to bring him here. Like, no, you don't have to do that. And it's been proven, Sean. The San Diego Padres are not one of the biggest markets in baseball. Amen. They're not. But what did that team do 2 years ago when they had Juan Soto and who else was on that? Tatis. All these different guys were on that team. They were spending hundreds and hundreds of $1 million more than the Chicago Cubs. And their owner came out and said, hey, all you baseball fans out there who are you're a fan of a team, and the owner of that team is telling you, well, we just don't have money to spend on the baseball team. They're lying. They're lying to your face. They do have the money to spend on the baseball team. They just choose not to.
Yeah. And you know what, Kyle? That you took the words out of my mouth when you said you don't expect them to pay like the Dodgers and the Yankees. The expectation is not for the Cubs to match the payrolls of the Dodgers and Yankees necessarily, but it should be to use their financial advantage in a way that bolsters the team chances of winning now, just not maintaining the physical balance that they are and saying, hey, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this, and then come out and have a bold-faced lie and say, hey, we're just breaking even. We can't compete with these teams.
Sean, the expectation should be you are in one of the biggest sports markets in the world, in the entire world, fourth in all of baseball. And you should take pride in that, and take pride in the fact that you own a sports franchise in Chicago, Illinois, that has one of the largest fan bases of any sports organization in the entire world. And here you are telling us that you don't have any money to spend on the baseball team. You guys, the fact of the matter is, it's just a lie. It's a lie. And to revert back to that article real quick, Sean, they actually asked the MLB president, or Players Association president, Tony Clark, about how he feels about some of these teams and their spending, implementing a salary cap, so on and so forth. And his direct quote, Sean, and he wasn't calling out the Ricketts per se, but I mean, you tell me if he was calling out the Ricketts, Sean. This is his exact response. Hypothetically speaking, it's an interesting dynamic when a club says it does not have any money, but it's otherwise investing hundreds of millions in properties around the ballpark, and then leveraging the value it creates for the club to take more money to do with the property, all while running a professional ball club. I always find it fascinating when clubs talk about their finances and do so against the backdrop of an industry that's growing quickly as this one. That's an interesting dynamic. So you guys, whether saying he's calling out the Ricketts or not, he is calling out Tom Ricketts 100%, no doubt about it. Not many of the teams in baseball have these baseball oases surrounding the stadium. There's only a handful of those teams. And right now, the only guy who's doing that at the same time as he's saying, we don't have enough money to spend on the team, is Tom Ricketts. The rest of these, I mean, look at Sean. St. Louis is a smaller market than the Chicago Cubs. That team had sustained success for 50 years. The Cubs went 116 years without winning a World Series. Eventually, Cubs fans have to. The only way this could ever be fixed, Sean, is if Cubs fans just stop showing up to Wrigley Field, and we all know that that's not going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
First of all, 30% of the fan base that are sitting in Wrigley Field on any given day are tourists coming to Chicago who have to see Wrigley Field. We have to see Wrigley Field. And you're always going to have that. You are always going to, that's never going to stop. So that stadium is going to be relatively full, whether we like it or not. But yeah, eventually, Sean, some way, some shape, some form, the Chicago Cubs fan base is going to have to strong arm the Ricketts family into spending more money. If not, then sell the team.
I agree, because right now it feels like he's kind of out of touch with the realities of what the fan base expectations are at $30 a beer, $30 a beverage. I mean, you're asking us to spend our money coming to see your product, but as we just stated, you're not putting the money back into the product that we want to go out and see. Now, as we say this, do you feel the approach, Kyle, that they took this year by getting a couple of these guys, like trading for Kyle Tucker on the 1-year deal, getting Presley, were kind of just patchwork, kind of like 1-year deals to kind of make us competitive but not sustain long-term success? And this is kind of what I mean, like they're out of touch with the reality of what the fan base expects out of them, because I don't want to see
Sean, what the sport expects.
Yeah,
what the sport expects.
Yeah, and I was going to say, again, I was ecstatic when we got Kyle Tucker, man. And if people aren't in touch with like Kyle Tucker is hands down one of the best players in baseball. I mean, it's not even a question. He's top 5.
He was ranked number 4 on MLB's top 100 player. I mean, it's not a question. It's not a matter of opinion. If you look at Kyle Tucker's statistics, he is one of the best players in baseball. But Sean, how pathetic is it that the second we make that trade, the first thing that pops up in any Cubs fan's head, at least any Cubs fan who knows this team, is there's no way they're extending this guy. And you just traded a first-round pick and one of the top prospects in baseball, Cam Smith, who, by the way, guys, is just jacking home runs in Houston and spring training. And here we are, like, are the Cubs going to dish out $375 million for Kyle Tucker? The reality, Sean, no, probably not. That's probably not going to happen. So as a fan, all we can say is that the Cubs are doing this thing again, where they're like, well, let's make a couple trades. We'll have this guy on the roster for 1 year and let's make a run at it. Like, no, if you want to be a good baseball team that competes with teams like the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox, you need to spend money, whether you like it or not. And you know what, Sean? Right after Tom Ricketts said last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, right after he said, we just don't have any more money for the baseball team, he went and tried to buy Chelsea soccer team, which is one of the most valuable, expensive sports franchises in the entire world. Now, guys, I understand people in the United States don't understand how valuable these soccer teams are. But outside of the United States, America, soccer is the biggest sport in the world. And Chelsea is one of the top teams in the entire world when it comes to soccer. That franchise has to be worth what, Sean, 20-30 billion dollars?
Yeah, it's
and Tom Ricketts is going to tell us he doesn't have any more money for the baseball team, but he's willing to dish out $20 million for Chelsea soccer team.
Yeah, the biggest dip to me that really got this going was a $60 million dip from last year to this year. And, Scott is kind of bringing it up, big difference in payroll from 87 wins to 92, 94 wins. I do think because, and actually I shouldn't say that, because I do think that the Reds are a lot better. I think the Brewers, until they prove otherwise, are going to be a competitive ball club because they keep finding ways to win, bringing up these minor league players that keep excelling in the major leagues. So for me, it's they had a chance this offseason, and I do think they're going to be a competitive club in the NL Central. The question is, can they compete with the likes of the Mets? Can they compete with the likes of the Braves, the Dodgers, the Padres even? And those questions, the answer to those questions to me is no, until they get out there and they actually prove it with what they have on the field. I'm not sold on the pitching staff. I love Justin Steele. You're going to expect some regression from Shota Imanaga. I don't see any way around that. Guys, he's not going to start off 9-0, throwing a sub-2 earned run average this year. It's not going to happen, and I will come back on here and eat my words if it does.
Yeah, not a fly ball pitcher in Wrigley Field, Sean.
No. That's not going to happen. Jamison Tyon lost his velocity towards the end of the season last year. There's a lot of questions. I think the crazy thing for me is I think there's more questions in the starting rotation than there are in the bullpen this year. And that was reversed last year because I think they did a good job retooling this bullpen with Morgan and Hodge. I think 6, 7, 8, 9, I think they're going to be able to get through those innings relatively easier, especially if Ben Brown returns to form. Javier Assad is back to where he was. These long relief guys, especially when these pitchers get pulled for high counts in the 5th inning. I think the Cubs back end are in a good spot. Front end, I think we have a lot of question marks here, man. What do you think about that starting rotation?
Yeah, Sean, we talked about this with Alex Pat 2 weeks ago. This is a team who is the starting pitching is probably due to take a step back, right? We talked about this. This team, and Imanaga, I love the guy, guys. I have nothing against the guy. I personally believe he is a number 3 in the Major League Baseball. I think he's a fly ball pitcher, and on days where the wind is blowing out, he's going to have bad days. If you go back to the Major League debut last year, Sean, if the wind's blowing out that day, that game looks a lot different. There was 4 or 5 near home runs in that game off Imanaga that ended up being pop flies, that if the wind's blowing out are home runs, Sean. Like I said, I love the guy. I have nothing against it. He's a Chicago Cub. I love him. I always will. What he did last year was absolutely amazing. And it was probably the thing that kept most Cubs in tune with the team last year, because I think halfway through the season, people knew this was a team that wasn't going to win the World Series or even get close. So Imanaga was at least a cool story you could follow. But yeah, Sean, I expect them to go get their number 2 pitcher, and they have this free agency class, and they did not. And you know what? Knowing the Cubs, they ignored all these guys like Max Fried, Tony Snell, all these guys who were made available. All these guys they could have been in conversations with, they ignored that position. And knowing the Cubs, they'll get halfway through the season, think they have a chance at playoff baseball, trade more prospects away for a guy that could have signed in free agency, or at least somebody of equal value, and then they'll ultimately miss the playoffs by 1 game or be a first-round knockout. Sean, I think this is their goal. I think the fact, as long as the Cubs are playing meaningful baseball in August and September, early September, I should say, that is good enough for them because it keeps the fans coming back and it keeps the fans invested. But eventually, Sean, this is a team that should be winning championships or at least competing for championships in a yearly basis for the last 100 years, Sean. It should have been happening for the last 100 years. Here's another thing that he says in this article real quick, guys. He says, this is just not how large market franchises should be run. That doesn't mean you have to go spend like the Dodgers and the Mets, but at least put a payroll on the field commensurate with the organization's value and market size. Teams like the Cubs should have the best of both worlds, an internal development system and the top ability to flex its financial muscles for top free agents. Sean, you just referenced the Brewers a couple minutes ago. The Brewers have a really good draft and developing system.
Yeah.
Maybe the best in it's between them and, for me personally, Sean, between them and the Tampa Bay Rays, those are the two best drafting and developing teams in baseball. They're also very good at finding journeyman free agents, bringing them to their team, and they're having their best seasons when they get to the Brewers or the Tampa Bay Rays. The Cubs, unfortunately, Sean, for the better part of the last century, have not been good at doing that. They're just not. As a matter of fact, you guys, if you go back and look, the pitchers for the Chicago Cubs who have had the biggest impact in the last 20 years, I'm talking about guys like John Lester, Jake Arrieta. Those were guys who were acquired via trade. Those are not guys that the Cubs drafted, developed, and came up here and dominated. I mean, look at Sean. The Pittsburgh Pirates have one of the smallest payrolls in all of baseball. Let's see who the pitchers that they've had and drafted and they had in their team the last 10 years. Garrett Cole, Paul Skeens, Jones, Tyon. I mean, the Cubs just aren't known for doing that. And then when they do finally have guys like Justin Steele, he's paid no respect at all. First of all, this guy's not barely making any money at all. If you compare it to other good aces in baseball, he's not getting paid what he deserves. Second of all, they come in here and they say, hey, Imanaga is going to be our number 2. Imanaga is just not Sean, a guy with a 3.80 ERA, which is what I think Fangraphs is expecting on him this season. That is not a number 2 pitcher in what should be one of the best lineups in all of baseball. We're the Chicago Cubs, guys. We should be competitive year in and year out, not even a question or doubt about it.
Yeah, and this is something that, I found that I threw in here, and you see the bottom there, the teams on the decrease, and you look right there, the way at the bottom, you see the Chicago Cubs tied with the Colorado Rockies. The biggest declines in baseball coming into this season.
Sean,
it's such an embarrassment.
Excluding the St. Louis Cardinals, who I believe are kind of in the middle of rebuild. If you put that list back up there.
Yeah.
I mean, Sean, do you want to be mentioned in the same conversation as the Chicago White Sox, Miami Marlins, Colorado Rockies, and Washington Nationals? I mean, you take away that championship from the Nationals a few years ago. They're one of those teams that have been abysmal over the last couple of decades as well. I mean, Sean, the Chicago, the 4th most valuable team in baseball, should not be in the same conversation as the 5 least valuable teams in baseball. That just means that's frugal ownership. That's exactly what that is.
The thing that makes it interesting to me is I didn't think that the Cardinals on that list were surprising, because I think the Cardinals, who have had down years, are still maintaining the payroll that suggests they're still trying to stay competitive, even in contrast to the Cubs that seem to be moving in the opposite direction. But, I'm very surprised, because what did the Cardinals get rid of? Paul Goldschmidt. So if that's their decrease in salary, they still have a young core that's coming up and can be competitive in this division. And I'm going to tell you, the most embarrassing thing for me is going to be if the Cardinals and the Pirates are keeping up with the Cubs, because the Cardinals should probably be the worst team in this division this year, hands down.
Maybe in the NL. Maybe in the NL.
Yeah, the Pirates cannot hit. They can pitch their ass off, but they can't hit. And I do think that the Brewers will be competitive. And I also think that the Cincinnati Reds are going to be a pain in the ass this year.
Yeah,
I really do.
If the Cincinnati Reds can stay healthy and that pitching staff can play consistently, they're going to be a much better team than people think. And eventually the Chicago Cubs are going to have to come out and be the enforcers in the NL Central. They're going to have to be the team that acts like they make the most money, because they do by a long shot. A long shot. It's not even close. As a matter of fact, I read something not too long ago that said the Cubs make more than 2 of the teams in their division combined. I don't know which. I think it might have been the Reds and the Pirates. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm mistaken. It was the Brewers and the Pirates, but both of them combined. And the Brewers somehow, what did they win the division by? 10 games last year? I mean, it's not like it was close. It wasn't close. It wasn't even close. I love what Scott said in the comments there. He said, just getting rid of a guy like he's basically what he's saying is he respects the fact that the Cubs went out and got the superstar we all been begging for, Kyle Tucker. That's awesome.
You're talking about
but does getting rid of Cody Bellinger make this team better? No, absolutely not. So why are we doing that? And he brings up Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish was the best Cub The year before the Cubs got rid of him. He was the best Cub. Cody Bellinger was the best Cub for the last 2 years. He was the most consistent player on the Cubs for the last 2 years.
And here's another good point by your brother checking in. What's going on, Brando? He goes, here's the question. What good is a top-ranked farm system if the kids don't get a chance to play during losing seasons? And
yeah,
Kyle,
I agree 100%, Brandon.
Yeah, you and I have been bouncing this question off each other for years. Like, why aren't these kids up here? Why isn't Cade Horton up here? Why wasn't this guy up here? Why wasn't that guy?
You know why?
The
Because
chance.
they want the Cubs to be, if they're afraid those kids are going to come in here, they're not going to make an immediate impact, and they won't be playing meaningful baseball in August. As long as they're playing meaningful baseball in August, they'll continue to sell tickets. That is their mentality, guys. That is their mind space. It's unfortunate because it's not fair to Cubs fans. Sean, like you said, are going to the stadium and spending $25 on a Jameson ginger ale. Oh yeah, which by the way, you can't use cash to pay for. And then they're going to come out and tell us, oh, we don't have any more money for baseball. Oh, so we have money. We have $300 to spend on 4 drinks, but you guys don't have any more money for baseball.
Right.
Yeah, that's real. That's insulting to me personally, Sean. It's insulting.
And to Kyle or to Scott's point about Bellinger, the decision to move Bellinger, especially after, his solid performance his first year. I say he backed up. He wasn't as good his first year as the second year, but it was interesting. While Tucker comes at a lower cost at $16.5 million, the Cubs gave up the $27.5 million salary and long-term potential he could have offered, especially given his bounce back, as I just said, with the Cubs. The move suggests that the Cubs are just trying to balance the books while improving the roster, but it doesn't come with the same long-term upside that Bellinger might have provided for the Cubs. So again, I guess you could say the same thing with with Presley. It was salary relief for the Astros. It makes sense for them and the Cubs adding bullpen depth, but signing Colin Ray for $5 million, low risk, low reward deal, I guess is okay.
Sean, Boyd for $29 million.
What? I mean, I guess he could be a solid addition.
Sean, you could have taken that money you gave to Boyd and the money you gave to Tucker or Turner and the money you gave to Colin Ray, and you could have taken all that money and gone and got a blue chip valuable player that contributed to this team and contribute to winning a championship. The Cubs just choose not to. They're afraid of long-term contracts, Sean. That's what they are.
Let me ask you this. Do you think it's the Cubs' commitment to stability and sustainability in their pitching staff is the problem? Or do you think the Cubs are waiting for Cade Horton and Jordan Wicks and Ben Brown to come and kind of relieve that without spending the money?
It's probably a little bit of both. And you know what, Sean? There are teams in baseball who are small market teams that is a good approach. I mean, they don't have the money to spend, so they need to be good at drafting and developing. They have to be. And you know what? The Cubs did it in 2016 because almost all of their hitter offense was drafted or developed by the Chicago Cubs. But that if that's the technique you're going to use to try to win a championship, we just won't spend any money in free agency. We'll just draft these guys. And Sean, as you know, baseball prospects take 5 years in the minor leagues to come up here and make an impact. If you do that, if that's the way you go about it, you're only going to win a championship once every 2 decades. And the Cubs should not be in that conversation. Now, listen, the White Sox should. If you're a White Sox fan, you just have to bank on the fact the White Sox make good trades for good prospects, develop them correctly, come here, and once every 20 years they could take a swing at a championship. That should not be the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs should be involved in championship conversation every single year. And the fact that they're willing to take money from their fans, if Sean, like you said, the prices you're talking about for the concessions, the sports goods store right outside of Wrigley, you're going to ask those prices.
Sportsbook.
Yeah, from blue collar Cubs fans who aren't making millions of dollars. You want $25 for Jameson ginger ale or $19 for a can of Miller Lite, and then you turn around and tell us, "Hey guys, sorry, we're kind of broke. We're not going to be competing for a championship this year. But if you come out to the ballpark, it'll be fun. You'll have a good time. It'll be fun to watch."
And I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this much, Kyle. We went the first time I was at Wrigley last year. It was Kyle's birthday. We went May 4th, 2nd through the 5th. I can't remember which day, but I bought the first round, and I didn't know the prices at Wrigley changed. I ordered 3 JMO and gingers, and she turned around. She's like, "That's $92." And I stopped and I went back to her and I was like, "That was 3 JMO Gingers? And she goes, yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
You're like, yeah, no, I wasn't buying the signed bat by Cody Bellinger. I just wanted the 3 Jameson and ginger ale.
I was like, what the hell is happening?
Oh yeah,
That
that's
blew
without
my
tip.
mind.
That's without tip.
That's without tip. Yeah, it was $105 after I tipped it, for the love of Christ. But to what your brother's saying down here, look at how PCA struggled, but he got to play, and now he's on the roster, and he's playing better because the major league staff was able to evaluate him, find the hitch in his swing, and this guy was able to take off, much like we just profiled Miguel Amaya. And
it's not even
Silver
just bringing
Steel,
him.
I love this comment. We'll circle back to this in 2016.
That's the expectations for Cubs fans. And Burnen's just talked about PCA. It's not even the Cubs bringing him up here. Sean, even when they bring him up here, Alex Canario I don't know, last year or the year before, hits a grand slam, and then they put him on the bench for like the next 5 days. Like generally in baseball, guys, baseball is a sport where if somebody's hot, you just play them until they're not hot. That's what you do in baseball. If somebody's hot, just keep playing them until they're not hot. There's no reason Alex Canario should not have been playing in the very next game the next day and starting. That guy, I mean, if somebody's hitting grand slams in their first at bat after being brought up from the minors, you need to keep that guy on the active roster playing for as long as you possibly can until he cools off, and then maybe you can send him back down or work on developing him. But, I mean, Sean, it's pathetic. Last year, in the middle of the season, when the Cubs were on that dismal 2-month span where they couldn't score runs.
After the hot start in April.
Yeah, I mean, they should have brought everybody. They should have brought up everybody that the roster could actually hold. They should have brought them all up. They should have brought them up. Owen Casey should have been up here. All of these guys. Just get, like you said, at least at the very worst, even if it doesn't work out to your favor, at least these guys are getting major league experience, right? At least they know what the feel is. They know what it's like to go into Wrigley Field, play professional baseball in front of hundreds of thousands or thousands of fans. At least they know, right? Nothing bad will come from it. People talk about, you're going to screw up their development. These guys are in the minor leagues for 4, 5, 6 years. Yeah. A 2-week stint in the majors is not going to mess up their development. It's not going to have any major impact on them whatsoever at all.
And to your point, man, the Cubs should be positioning themselves to suspend at a level that reflects their potential, man. They're behaving like a small market team, and they make their focus kind of more on like short-term fixes than long-term high impact investments. And that's concerning. The strategy for me is just stupid because, like you've been saying, man, we should be competing for championships. The Cubs had an opportunity this offseason to make a bold statement and committing to competing at the highest level. Well, they made some decent moves like adding Tucker and Presley. None of these scream like championship contender, because everything they did outside of those moves just screams small market baseball team. It's patchwork solutions instead of building blocks for the future, man. And that's kind of what, I know guys like Scott in the chat are pissed off about. They're not getting building blocks for the future. And now you have Kyle Tucker here, who I'm sure is going to bat 300 this year, probably hit 30 home runs, have 100 RBIs, have some sick OPS. And
you're going to fall in love with them.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, all right, take it easy, Kyle. We appreciate it. Thanks for, Sean, these major market teams, all their mentality should be the same. Anything you can do, I could do better. So now the Cubs are hurting themselves. Realistically, the Cubs are hurting themselves in 2 ways when they don't even compete for these major free agents, Sean. Not only are you not signing them to your team, but they are going to teams like the Dodgers, who are now going to pound your face into the floor for the next 10 years. I mean, this Dodgers team is one of the best teams I've ever seen. And the teams around them, like the Red Sox, Yankees, Cubs, should have prevented this from happening. They should have stopped this from happening by signing some of these guys so the Dodgers couldn't. And Sean, I am so sick of hearing sports franchise owners, especially big market franchise owners, saying, well, winning championships doesn't make money. That's wrong.
A lie.
Incorrect. Winning championships makes money. The jersey sales go up. Everything that has to do with the team in any way, shape, or form, anything in terms of value, anything that they sell skyrockets, goes up big time. Everything. I mean, Sean, since the Chiefs have been winning these Super Bowls with the Taylor Swift story and all this, I see countless little girls walking River Street wearing Travis Kelce jerseys. Girls who 5 years ago, the word football didn't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
Look how smart the Chiefs are look how smart their marketing department is. They know what they're doing. The problem is the Cubs, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks have a bunch of dinosaurs working for them that are stuck in doing things the way they were done in 1980. And the reality is it's 2025 and you have to adjust. The sports world is changing, so change with it.
Let me ask you this. The Cubs, I should say some Cub fans and the Cubs organization have hope for this year. And the development of players like Amaya, PCA, and Bush, and possibly a closer like Porter Hodge. Do you not value the development of these players while they they try and compete? I mean, the lack of star power and game changers outside of Kyle Tucker is going to make it difficult to match up against teams like the Braves, the Dodgers, the Mets, or even the Phillies for that matter, because these teams have competent depth that the Cubs just don't have. And they have top tier talent that the Cubs just don't have. But as I just stated, do you not feel the importance of having these young players, PCA going into his second year, Bush going into his second full year, Porter Hodge is going to go into his first full year. The development of these players, don't you feel that they kind of mixed in a Kyle Tucker and, they have a veteran like Ian Happ, a veteran like Suzuki, Dansby Swanson, like the mixture of these players, is that approach just not the approach that you feel is beneficial? Because you definitely want to see these top guys develop. And to your brother's point, you want to see them develop in the major leagues playing meaningful baseball.
Listen, I think every sports franchise in the world, outside of baseball, everywhere, should be proud of the fact that their homegrown talent helped them win a championship. That means you're doing everything's working in gear, right? Everything's working the way it should. Your farm system, those coaches are developing. You're bringing these guys up at the right time. You're adjusting their swings, adjusting their throws, making them better. But Sean, when you're a team that says we're going to rely solely or almost 100% on the farm system, and then we'll bring in maybe one superstar here and there, the margin of error is about this big, Sean. I mean, you're basically going to get a 1-year shot at winning that championship, and it was proven with the Chicago Cubs in 2016, Sean. If that's your approach, like, oh well, we'll wait for all of these prospects to come up and reach their peak at the same exact time, and then when that happens, we'll add one free agent star that can help these kids come along or maybe get them over the top. Well, then, Sean, all that timing has to be exactly. I mean, all these guys like Rizzo, Bryant, Baez, Addison Russell, they all had to have their best seasons all at the same exact time, and that was it.
It was lightning in a bottle.
One of them got hurt the next year. Once Chris Bryant got hit in the head from that pitch, which changed his career forever, their championship window was closed. So the Cubs should be a team that should be able to recognize that and be like, well, hey, listen, we still got Rizzo, we still got Baez, we still got Russell, we still got these other guys. So let's go get a free agent player that's the caliber of Chris Bryant and replace Chris Bryant so we can get this team right back off to where it left off last year. But they're not willing to do that. The second those superstars that they developed, those Chris Bryants, those top prospects fall off, they have to start the whole process of drafting and developing again. And it's going to be a whole another 4 or 5 years. Sean, the reality of the fact is this is not football. This is not basketball. In baseball, when you draft a player, if you draft him in, say, 2025, you are expecting him to make a major impact on your major league team in 2030. Those are the expectations. Unless you're talking about a guy who's a phenom, a freak of nature, a generational talent, and a guy like Paul Skeens. And that comes around, once every 10 years?
Yeah. Was Paul Skeens the new Randy Johnson, maybe? And we haven't seen a Randy Johnson since Randy Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Paul Skeens, I've seen bets on FanDuel and DraftKings where people are talking about Paul Skeens over-under no-hitters at 1.5. I've never seen that in my life. No-hitters are much, much more rare than people think that they are.
We're gonna give Scott a heart attack here.
Sorry, Scott. I'll try to calm down a little bit, but it's just the Ricketts family. It's almost like the Cubs were never sold at all.
I'll just wrap this portion up with saying the Ricketts can demand the best from his players, but we have and expect them to perform at a high level. But without their commitment with financial backing, it creates a frustrating disconnect, especially with the players, not only with the players, but with the fan base.
Well, particularly the fan base.
Yeah, the players are putting in the effort, the fans are showing up, but the front office isn't matching the intensity when it comes to building the team capable of competing for a title. And, that is the big disconnect here, man. The Cubs roster as it stands feels, I don't know, to me, maybe to you, Kyle, I'll ask you, inadequate to challenge the top teams, even though we're kind of excited because we think it's a good roster, but it's a good roster to what? Compete in the NL Central?
Yeah, Sean, to play meaningful baseball in August. That's what they want. And you know what, Sean? I think all that the fans are asking for, and you tell me if you think this is fair or not. I think all Chicago Cubs fans are asking for is for the people who own the team, the Ricketts in particular in this situation, to be just as passionate about the Cubs winning baseball as the fans are. I think that's all that they want. And the Ricketts don't care. They've proven time and time again that they just don't care. As long as their bottom dollar stays where they want it to be, and the fans are going to Wrigley and having fun and getting drunk and hanging out at the restaurants around there, spending more money, going to the Ricketts pockets and all these little restaurants and this little baseball town he's built. That's all they care about, Sean. At the end of the day, that's all they care about. And guys, this is something I would, if I was sitting in a room with Tom Ricketts, I would have no problem telling him this stuff, because I don't like to come on these podcasts and destroy our teams that we love and that we watch on a daily basis. But these are things I would have no problem saying to any of these guys' faces.
Yep.
It's just a fact, Sean. It's a fact.
My wrap up here is, Cubs fans, us, you, me, you can tell Scotty, these guys in the chat, we're passionate and support the history. We have a history of loyalty, man. We deserve a team that's willing to go all in, chase championships. Unfortunately, the ownership seemingly isn't focused on, financially stabilizing this team. They're focused more on financially stabilizing the team than contending for championships year in and year out. I can't even talk right now. Maybe I'm a little bit more aggravated. More year in and year out. It's hard to shake the feeling the Cubs are missing an opportunity to truly compete at the highest level. Fans want to see this team go all in and win another World Series. At the Silver Steel's point, I don't want to wait till 2030. Right now, the front office isn't reflecting the same sense of urgency that we are, and it's kind of frustrating that they have the resources to build a contender, and it's just a matter of they're not willing to do this. And for me, it's going to have a big effect on how much I'm going out to Wrigley Field and how much I'm spending money at the ballpark. Because, hey, man, you're asking me to go spend $250, $300 at the ballpark during the day because, look, I got a family of three. If I take my family out there between the ice cream, the Cokes, the hot dogs, and all this other crap that I have to buy when I go the pennant, whatever my daughter wants, I'm spending $300-$400, but yet I'm not getting that back in return. And to Bruce's point, I'm always going to love the Cubs, man. I was born in the Ravenswood neighborhood of Chicago on the north side. I was born into this. I bleed Cubby blue. I will never root for another team in my life, but I will not spend my money on a team that won't give it back to me.
Yeah, how sick are we of listening to billionaires complain about money?
Right.
It's disgusting. It's actually insulting to me, because these billionaires who are complaining about their bottom dollar, at the same time, they're asking blue collar people, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, bartenders for $30 for a Jameson and ginger ale is insulting. So you're complaining about your billions of dollars. I don't make billions of dollars, but I got to go spend $400 to go enjoy a Cubs game. And on top of that, Sean, I work at a bar. I know the cost of liquor. I know what a bottle of Jameson costs.
Yeah.
I did the math. I think I told you this last year. That means they're making about $785 off one bottle of Jameson. That's about the profit margin. Yeah. In which they probably go through 1,000 bottles in a game.
Here, I'll tell you,
you're going to tell us that you don't have any money for the baseball team? That's insulting.
We're having a friends get together today. I just went out and bought a bottle of Jameson yesterday for $26.
Yep. So the first drink you ordered when we went to that game, May the 4th, the first drink you ordered paid for the entire bottle.
Yeah.
Everything after that was just all gravy for them. And that's what every bottle, every beer. I mean, how much do you think a hot dog cost them, Sean? 3 cents?
Yeah.
3
cents?
I
can tell you this, and I know this for a fact because I just was watching a show the other day that brought this up. When you pour liquor out of one of the the guns or the taps, whatever,
Mhm.
beer the same. It's about 3 cents to the dollar. When you pour it out of a can or you pour it out of a bottle, it's about 8 cents to the dollar.
Yeah, because you're paying
So
for the aluminum. Yeah.
yeah, you're saving money. They're raping us at the stadium, and I'm okay with it. If you put a contender on there, that I want to see, I'll tell you, I went to a lot of games in 2016. A lot. I went to a lot of games in 2015. I went to a lot of games in 2014.
Yeah, there you go, right there. They're more championships make money. You're more inclined to go watch the team when especially when you own the entire town around it, and people are going to go to those bars during the playoffs. Even if they can't get into the stadium, they'll show up and spend money at those bars. And it's Sean. What did I say? I had this conversation with you the other day over the phone. People are complaining about the Bears raising ticket prices 10%. Guys, am I happy about it? Of course not. No, but I'll say this. If the Bears say, hey, guys, we have to raise ticket prices by 10%, and we say, well, why? And they say, well, usually we pay our coach anywhere from $2 to $6 million a year. We want to give you guys a championship caliber team. So we decided to give Ben Johnson $14 million a year. We're also going to spend more. We're going to max our money out to the salary cap and free agency. We're going to do all this. But we're doing it to put a championship caliber team on the field. Sean, I am much more inclined to go buy a ticket to the Bears game if I believe they're competing to win championships for that extra 10% than I am to buy a ticket to the Bears game for 50% off if they're not worth a damn. I'm going to watch the team go 5-12 again. If this is the move the Bears decided they had to make, we got to bring a guy like Ben Johnson in here to change the culture. We're just going to have to pay him $14 million, and some of that's going to come out of your pockets. And, all the people out there are like, oh, well, that's ridiculous. Just because the Bears signed a really good coach, expensive coach, doesn't mean they have to that has to come out of the ticket holders' pockets. Well, you guys, that's any business in the world. If the government tells McDonald's they have to raise minimum wage by $5, the price of the food goes up. They don't just pay their employees more money. We do. That's the same thing as any industry in the world. So if the Bears say, hey, guys, we need 10 more percent for ticket prices, but I bet you we're going to win a Super Bowl for 2030, let's do it. I'm all in. Let's do it because I'm sick of watching losers. And Sean, 2024, statistically, between the 5 major sports teams in Chicago, statistically, record-wise, the worst year in Chicago sports history.
It's funny. I was talking to your brother yesterday, Brandon, and we were reminiscing over, going back to like around 2010, the Hawks won their first championship. The Cubs were on the come, and the Blackhawks were 2010 through 2016. And I mean, they were a decade, but they were winning championships. The Cubs were in the NLCS, 2014.
In the playoffs, just in the playoffs.
In
the playoffs consistently.
The Bears were still competitive with Lovie Smith, and now we're approaching 15 years later where we're waiting for this to return, and I won't even count the Bulls, but I think the Bulls were even competitive back then. Didn't they have Derrick Rose around then? And they were competitive because the Jayhawks,
9, 10, 12, 13,
because the Jayhawks beat Derrick Rose in 2008. So he was on the Bulls, and they were actually
2009, 10, 11. The Bulls were very good. But Joakim Noah, Luol Deng, Derrick Rose, those teams were off. They were fun to watch. And you know what? Even at the time, because that's around the time that the NBA started doing these triple stars on the same team, where they had Chris Bosh and Paul Pierce. Well, all these guys started teaming up on all these. Even though you knew the Bulls probably didn't stand a realistic chance to win a championship, Sean, I was invested. I watched that playoff game where Derrick Rose tore his ACL. I watched all of it. I was with them every step of the way because at least they put a competitive team on the court and they had a small outside chance to win a championship. I was all for it. But man, since the runs you just talked about, Sean, it has been absolutely brutal to be in Chicago. I can't imagine. I want to know. We need to get somebody on this podcast at some point that has an outside perspective. Like, hey, what do you think about the fact that Chicago sports suck? How do you feel about that? I want to hear what their response is. I want to know if they're like, it's crazy to me. I know Chicago's a populated city. I know these teams make a lot of money. I know that the fans show up. I know the Cubs have the best attendance of any team in baseball. I would figure that you guys would be competing for a championship every year.
Yeah, and Chicago in all Chicago sports, not one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not the White Sox, but
maybe not the White Sox. Well, ladies and gentlemen, We have tore the Cubs down to the bare bones and their spending habits, and hopefully, I don't see it changing. I don't, and for me, it's gonna have to be, these kids come up, like Kyle said, 2016. Everyone have their best year that they could possibly have. PCA career year, Amaya career year. I mean, if those things happen this year, the Cubs could compete, sure, but how's that rotation looking? Cubs,
Sean, that's like throwing a dart at a moving dartboard, hoping you hit the double bowls, like the dartboard swinging back and forth, and you got to hit that double bowl. I mean, how the stars aligned, and you could feel it in 2016. It almost felt like it was a team of destiny. You're like, this team is going to win the World Series, and everything, the stars aligned perfectly. Everybody had their best years, and it was awesome. It was fun, but for that to happen again, it's probably 1 in 116 years chance that happens again. Sean, there's a very good chance we will no longer be here when the Chicago Cubs win their next championship.
I just hope I'm still around when the Bears win their next championship. I was telling your brother yesterday, my favorite teams in the world, I've seen them all win a championship in my life. But I was 8 going to be 9 when the Bears won a championship. So I would really like to be able to celebrate a championship. I remember every detail of what I did when the Cubs won Game 7. I remember exactly where I was at Chicago City Limits with about 30 people all holding each other with our fingers crossed in 2010, like arms around each other, leaning on the stage, staring up at the big projection screen when Kane scored that goal in 2010 in Philadelphia.
That nobody knew he scored.
That nobody knew he scored. I remember that. We're all sitting
finish.
There. Yeah, we're all looking at each other like, what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah, like, why is Kane getting undressed?
Yeah. I mean, to get those days back. And here, I'll be honest, and I know this sounds far-fetched it's going to sound far-fetched to a lot of people because of where they are right now. But the Blackhawks might be the closest to getting their organization back on track for sustainable winning seasons. Well, and I know people look at me and be like, you're nuts. But
I will say, I think, and I'll be the first to admit I was a harsh critic when he first got here. But you guys, I think Kevin Warren is doing something in Hallis Hall that hasn't been done there in a long time. I think the standards and the expectations are raised, and I think he did that. I think that at the end of the day, I bet you George McCaskey didn't want to spend $14 million on a coach, Sean. But Kevin Warren was like, hey, welcome to the NFL in 2025. You want to be the best? You got to go get the best. This is how it works. There's no excuses. No excuses. You're the Bears.
I actually said on one of our shows that he had a very punchable face.
He looks like Donatello, dude.
Yeah. I'm starting here. I'm starting to change a little bit on polls, and I'm starting to change on Warren as well. But again, as I stated yesterday, when my solo turned into a whole show, we'll talk about that later. But it all starts on March 10th through March 12th, and then what they do in this draft. I'm not going to go all in on these guys until I see the plan unfold.
Yeah, for me, where it started, I mean, I agree with you, Sean. There's a lot of work to be done for me, but where it started was the fact that the Bears have a franchise. I personally believe that Caleb Williams is a franchise quarterback, and that's where it started for me, man. I mean, I've never seen that in my life, so it just has a different feel to it for me. I think Caleb Williams could be the piece that you could leverage and use to change the culture of this team. Like, hey, look, we have a quarterback that could give us an opportunity to win a Super Bowl every year for the next 10 years. As long as he's healthy and on the field, we are in the running. And I've never seen that. So for me, it just has it feels like the culture's changing. Maybe it's not the culture changing. Maybe I just feel it because I've never seen the Bears have a franchise quarterback. But Sean, I mean, at least you've seen all these teams win. I've never seen the Bears win a Super Bowl. I wasn't even alive. I wasn't even here. And how much time, money, and effort I've invested in the Chicago Bears. I mean, look behind me. This stuff's not free.
I've seen the Jayhawks win 3 times. I've seen the Blackhawks win 3 times. I've seen the Cubs win once and the Bears win once. So I have been
And the
blessed.
Bulls win 6 times.
And the Bulls win. Yeah, and the Bulls win 6 times. You're correct there.
6 and 7 years.
Yeah. And the reason I left the Bulls out, guys, I'm not the biggest Bulls fan. I did celebrate with Chicago when they won. I do love Michael Jordan. I think he's one of the greatest athletes to ever play in any sport across the board. And anyone who tells me LeBron James is on the same level, I'm sorry. Excuse my language. You're a dumb fuck. Because it's not even close.
That means you're a product of society. That's a sign of the times. That means you never saw Michael Jordan play. Because if you physically watched, with your own 2 eyes, watched Michael Jordan play, you cannot possibly consider LeBron James to be a better basketball. As a matter of fact, if you talk about the skill set mixed with the will to win, if you put it all together, that hunger inside of you to win, I'd say Kobe is better than LeBron James for me personally.
Oh.
But, I mean, I know that will spark some controversy, but for me personally, Sean, Sean, this you want me to blow your mind here, guys? For me, it goes Michael Jordan number 1, Kobe Bryant number 2, Steph Curry number 3, LeBron James number 4. Go ahead, argue. I don't care.
I might even put him down a little bit more, but I like other players in their game. They just don't have the championships. Like for me, if you're talking about a power forward, and what does LeBron James play? What is he, a small forward?
Yeah, I mean, he could play anything. He could literally play anything. I think he play power forward, center, small forward, shooting guard. But
I like Karl
and point
Malone.
guard. But yeah, he's a small forward.
And I would put Karl Malone on that list ahead of him. Man.
Oh, Sean, if you want to go back
Tim Duncan, I would put on that list ahead of LeBron
Sean,
James.
if you want to go back to like the beginning of basketball, yeah, LeBron's not in my top 10.
Like here, if you sat me down right now and we're like, here, you can have Tim Duncan or LeBron James. I'm taking Tim Duncan. I'm sorry. I know that he can play all 5 positions, but Tim Duncan was a freaking winner, man. That guy
Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Dr. J. I would take all of these guys over LeBron James. I just don't think I think LeBron James is a very good basketball player. I'm not taking that. I'm not an idiot, guys. I know sports. He's a very, very good basketball, a once in a generational talent. I just don't think he has that dog in him.
Can I ask you this?
He has it.
Is LeBron James even better than Luka Doncic, who he's now teammates with, or Nikola Jokic?
No, not right now. If you took 22-year-old LeBron James, probably, but right now, Luka Doncic to me is the best player in basketball.
Okay,
you talk about that dog mentality.
Jokic?
Yeah.
Really?
For me personally, yeah. Sean, you talk about that dog mentality. Luka Doncic, he is not scared of anybody. He's not afraid of anybody, man. He doesn't. He'll take any shot. He'll go up against anybody in basketball. He doesn't care, man. Did you see the video? Did I send you the video of him staring down the Mavs GM after he sinks that 3 against the Mavs when his first game against the Mavs with the Lakers? I mean, just the coldest moment in sports this year.
From the bare minimum this past Thursday, Brandon and Dustin think with Luka Doncic there now that the Lakers are going to win the NBA championship.
Going to win the NBA championship. I
don't know enough about
I don't
NBA
believe
to contribute to that conversation.
I don't believe so, but that Luka Doncic trade immediately put them in the conversation. Yeah, 100%. I think OKC still has a lot to say about that. I think Denver is still going to be in the running for sure, no doubt about it. But yeah, I mean, Sean, they certainly are a formidable opponent now. The only thing that the Lakers are missing for me personally is a big man. I mean, they now Luka and LeBron have to do all the rebounding because they don't have a true big man. But that's the price you pay. That's the sacrifice you pay getting rid of Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic. You just don't have that big man. You don't have a true center.
And a couple of things. You got anything else before we wrap it up?
Man, I mean, let's just talk about how we're looking forward to the Cubs. It's coming up here pretty quickly, Sean. It's going to be a busy month in sports, guys.
Yeah, we got about 18. Let's see, what is it? What I just checking my calendar. The 18th of this month, I believe the Cubs are playing baseball in Japan. I think it's the 18th and 19th. They're playing in Japan. So we got about 17 days, and we'll be watching real baseball. And we just want to let you guys know, I believe the Hallis Hall Hangover on Monday is going to be delayed slightly, about 30 minutes. So we'll probably be checking in about 6:30 on Monday. So just make that note. We'll also post that on our Facebook group page.
It's my fault, guys.
Just so everyone's aware. But we have a family outing for a beautiful baby girl that's turning 1 year old. She's going to have some awesome new Bears gear. I can tell you that right now. Inside,
I knew that was good. Never once in my mind was like, I wonder what Sean's gonna get my daughter for her birthday. I knew what was coming.
Unfortunately, one of them is on order, but I got a message yesterday and it won't be here till March 10th.
Well, I'll try to explain it to her. I hope it doesn't hurt her feelings.
But you know what? We are going to be back. We will not going to miss Monday. We're going to be a little bit late. Kyle might be a little bit later than us, but I'm going to try and get back in here by 6:30 with Dustin and Brandon, talk a little combine action on Monday, and then we'll be back on Wednesday. We're going to break down safeties and any news nuggets and tidbits that happen in between Monday and Wednesday, and then of course the bare minimum on Thursday. We really appreciate Scott Angel, Brandon Silversteel, Ant Mass, and Ant Mass I forgot to mention. I agree with you 100%. I'm more interested in going to spring training than going out to Wrigley Field. As much as I love Wrigley Field, man, I'll tell you, football is my favorite sport. But when I like to go to a sport live, my favorite sport to go live, first off, is hockey. It's not even close. But the smells of the ballpark, the snap of the glove, the crack of the bat, that spring air blowing in your face, like there is nothing like going to that first ball game of the year. And I want to thank Tom Ricketts for ruining that for me.
And Sean, it's always going to be America's sport. There's just something about baseball. It's just it still has that feel of an 1800 sport, like 1890s.
Hey, Lindsay, thanks for checking in, girl. We appreciate you.
That baseball still has that feel to me. It's like nostalgic, especially walking into Wrigley Field of all places. There's just something about it that can't be matched. And I'm a football guy too, Sean. I love the Bears above every other team.
Yeah.
But man, if the Bears are 1A, the Cubs are 1AA.
Yeah, I'll tell you. For me, it's the Bears, and then probably the Jayhawks and Cubs are probably tied, really, really close. I mean, I'm in a state of depression with the Jayhawks right now, and they better beat Tech in about an hour. They better not lose another game at home, or Kyle, you might hear me screaming at your house because these are must-win games, man. We got such a strong.
Yeah, I don't know if it ended up happening, but I saw some stat on ESPN the other day. And guys, obviously I'm not as big of a KU follower as Sean is. I tune in since I've met this man. I pretty much have no option, but I think I saw something that they said that it was like going to be the first time ever that KU basketball has lost back-to-back games at Allen Fieldhouse, or at least like in 50 years or something like that.
It's been a while. It's a rough year, man. It's 1,477 days without being unranked was snapped. And I'll be honest, I can't remember, so don't quote me if I'm wrong, but it's something like 1986 or something like that is the last time we lost a senior day. And holy crap, we got the Arizona Wildcats coming in on senior day. That's going to be a tough one for this ball club. It's just been so many. I wouldn't expect anything else from Mr. Scott Angel. Hey, Lindsay, right there, girl. Rock Chalk Jayhawk all day, baby. I'll have to send you a picture. I got a whole section dedicated to the Jayhawks in this garage, man. Like I said, if they lose to Tech today, I'm just going to hold my head down. I'm already depressed because March is my favorite time of year. I already know March is shot in the foot, and I'm going to have to not pick them to win the national championship.
Sean, if they lose today to Tech, you're gonna have a police officer at your door, and you're like, "Can I help you, sir?" He's like, "Yeah, Kyle DePlacy called about a wellness check on you."
I will tell you guys this: all the speculation about him going to Oklahoma State and talking to Oklahoma State. Bill Self already came out and said he 100% is coaching Darren Peterson, the #1 guard in the country, at the University of Kansas next year. So that is a great sign, and I have a lot of faith the Jayhawks are going to bounce back next year with Tiller and Darren Peterson coming in and Marco Jackson coming back off of injury. Things are looking up in Lawrence, man. Yeah. Everyone has a bad year. I never thought I'd see this under Bill Self, but
he'll right the ship, man. He'll right the ship. Why do you fall, Sean? Why do you fall? So you can learn how to pick yourself back up. This is something that KU fans aren't used to. But you guys, the odds of them going 200 years without having a bad season here or there is pretty slim. So
yeah, and I'll tell you, I don't think Bill Self will want to go out on his shield like this either, man. This is
Lindsay said Rock Chalk Jayhawk, but those are just Cubs hearts to me.
Hey, you know what? We share the same colors, man. Red, white, and blue. We wear them over our heart every day.
But you guys, Jayhawks are crimson, Sean.
We are crimson.
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't have said that, but when I lived in Kansas, if you called them red and blue, it corrected immediately every time. That's 100%. Not red, it's crimson. It's crimson.
Hey, it's in the fight song, man. Hey, until next week, we have I just stated the shows. Check us out, like and subscribe. Please hit that notification bell so you
keep an eye out for the overhaul, guys. It's coming. Yes. It's going to be a different 4-star Chicago sports here pretty soon. It's going to be a lot more user friendly for you guys. Plenty of different ways to get in touch with us, contact with us. We'll be giving away some cool gear here soon. We'll be doing little incentives for all you listeners, all you guys who are loyal listeners. So please keep your ears out, keep your eyes open.
And thank you. Don't forget April 24th, live draft show, 102 North River Street Tavern. Get out there. We're going to have giveaways. I haven't figured out what they're going to be yet. I got a little bit of time to dial up some stuff, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome. We're going to get you guys out there. Maybe even, and I know it's an NFL draft, but maybe even a set of Chicago Cubs tickets to a game in May.
Maybe even a Tom Ricketts jersey.
Yeah, a Tom Ricketts jersey. We can have a burning party. But yes, we're going to give away. We're going to be live. We're going to broadcast live. We're trying to put it together. We haven't figured out all the details yet, but it's going to be awesome. I actually talked to Lauren yesterday, Kyle, and Lauren actually told me that people had asked him if we were doing this party this year. So that's a really good sign that people are getting used to the draft party over at River Street, 102 North River Street. We'll be there setting up at 5:00. Party starts at 6. Bears will probably draft by 8. So in that time, come out, hang out with us, get to meet us all, shoot the shit, talk some sports, win some prizes. Until next week, until Monday, we love y'all. Cubs up, Bear down. Peace.